Okay, so I just, going back in time right now, November 8th, 2022, it was a really hard week, and a lot of things have been happening the last year or two. I'd had a lot of more, and it's always mostly been men that have talked to me. I mean, one guy was just very, very persistent since 2020. And just initially it was innocent, and then it got weird, and then they started changing. They found my personal email from my old website, and then they were saying scary things, and they thought that they were reincarnated as a prophet. And then things got weirder, and then I said please stop a few times, and then a cop said please stop, and then they started trying to contact me through other people, famous people, like through Mormon stories. And I'm like, no, I'm not going. I don't want anything to do with Mormon stories. But they just wouldn't stop escalating it. And so I took them to court. And it wasn't fun. I didn't want to, but I felt and prayed about it, and it was the right thing. And I hope they got help. Right. But then there's been two other guys that just were really, really super persistent. One I've talked about before, that I you just don't know. Did they change their name? Is that still that other person? I don't know. And then another guy was married, and of course I've had a couple conversations with some married men that are like high up there, just really, really short. And I make sure to keep it short, right? I think it's very inappropriate to have longer. This person was drawing it out and just sending like 10 messages and pictures and trying to get into these long conversations. So I just think a lot of us sometimes, if we're just not interested or it just got weird. And so I just wanted to put an end by not being very warm. And then they were mad about that. And now they're publicly attacking me, right? But then a lot of it was just trying to argue. And yeah, it just things that didn't make sense. I'm like, how could you not know? Like, I just didn't believe them either. I'm like, you can't, I support you, and then support Kim Marshall in her photo because they saw her AI picture and thought that they could see individual hairs. Well, then that's a real photo of a man. I'm like, here's a link to her website. She put it through a program that gave it lifelike qualities, like micro, very fine details and endings. It was just really weird. So I'm not surprised, but I did block them from commenting over a year ago before I blocked comments. But it was clear they were very hurt and upset. So they're just very hurt from that. But I'm like, you're married. Don't try to carry on long conversations with me. I feel like it's very inappropriate. They weren't hitting on me, but it was just inappropriate. And then they were mad that I thought we would have a longer conversation, and I just, whatever. And so just a lot of weird things going on, and then things got really, really weird in the fall, and started meeting people that believed in tent cities. And I'm in an area where a lot of people did know certain people associated. I won't get specific and not going to name drop. I won't get specific about anyone here, but someone saw this video and was very, very offended. I was told that. But this person twisted my words, and I found out later that one person believes that they for sure said that they were clinically diagnosed with multiple personality disorder, right? But they twisted my words 4 days after I made this video, and said that, no, I believe in all this. And I said this about them, even though I had a ton of evidence that I didn't, which I'm going to show you. So this is the context of it. I'm obviously talking about tent cities. This person also got into an argument with me about Michelle Stone. So they really supported Michelle Stone, really into tent cities. Okay. And I'm remembering a conversation I heard in 2015. And I'm bleeding it in with... I now look back and I could hear people talking about things that I know was taught by Julie Ralph, like looking at people, snap judgments. Everyone is black and white. There's no gray. No one's just doing their best. No one just has a health problem like me, brain fog, going, whew, I'm just trying to stand tall. And someone maybe with borderline personality disorder is just offended by every facial expression and going, dark, you should die. You know, how terrifying, how disgusting that is. And the reason I brought up borderline personality disorder is because it sounded like Lori Daybell was on that spectrum, and so I talked also about Sins of Our Mother. My reaction to it, I just felt sorry and felt some compassion for her son. And I'm trying to remember in that video, I made a video that summer saying that I'd watched The Vampire Diaries, and I think Chad had watched that and incorporated that into some of these beliefs he was teaching Lori. And then her son in Sins of Our Mother, he said that she was into the whole vampire, but like specifically, like they even use the word Elena in their secret stories about it. Just really, Elena's the main character on the Vampire Diaries. I'm talking about Vampire Diaries, not Twilight. Twilight was totally benign as far as, like, there's violence in it, but it's the Vampire Diaries that they get really into this weird ideology that led to the killing of people, right? And so I'd been trying to understand, like, okay, do sometimes people believe in tent cities and don't believe in zombies, but this person believes in visions of glory, told me to read Visions of Glory as well. There was evidence online that this person was believing and supporting publicly castings. Scary stuff. And then I hear multiple personality disorder and this person been violent, so I've talked to someone that they've been violent towards. And so here we got 4 days later, I watched both of these parts. And so Hidden True Crime is by the host of that is a reporter. And so she knows how to report. So she has looked at all the documents, anything that she could, like you can pay and get certain documents and things like that. And it was very scary. So I just, up until watching this, I will say, sort of summarizing Heather Daybell, her husband is the brother of Chad Daybell. They were in her ward, and she watched him turn into this fanatic, just sort of this weird guy, into all of a sudden he's got access to a church building, I believe, this old building, and just it was thousands of people showed up, and she's like, this is scary. Like, she was calling it out from day one, and people weren't listening to her. She was dismissed by bishopric members and stake president, and sadly she left the church. But it scared me a lot to hear how many people were into this and really believed Julie Rowe's book was like this amazing book, So I was freaked out by this date and just was having a conversation, but someone was very specific in accusing me. But I'd also heard that they'd watched this video and their feelings were hurt really bad, but that they had twisted my words completely to be not the context that I'm quoting the believers I'm quoting Melanie Gibb and these girls in Salt Lake City. I'm bleeding it together, right? Because Melanie Gibb says that I really just heard these girls in Salt Lake City in 2015 point at people in the ward and call them light and dark. And I just walked away from them. I'm like, I don't know. And I'd met a few people that were like, I'm into Reiki, and I had already received a testimony in 1999 that Reiki was not a good thing. Met someone that we thought was just a hypnotist, but was also into Reiki, and I just had a spiritual witness that it wasn't of God. And that's what got Julie Rowe excommunicated. So just be careful if you watch this, because this woman, just follow this spirit, right? It's not an anti-mormon channel, but she's left the church, so she'll bag on it sometimes, lightly, her husband sometimes will defend it, but he's not a member. I don't know if he ever was, but they know a lot. and they know their stuff. And so she's got all the documents, and she does talk about how visions of glory did lead to that belief system of, I already know that this person that accused me of saying, I'll just be blunt, this person started telling people that I wanted them to die. 100% didn't happen. They claimed that they overheard it on the phone. I got my phone records. I got those people stating, did I say anything like that? No. And I could show it to anyone because she just went. But according to Hidden True Crime, the host of this show, of this podcast, she knows, and knows people that know people that still believe in it. And a lot of them are very hardcore. And they live in fear of being found out because they want to still go to church. They don't want to be excommunicated. They also don't want to go to jail. So I think they're willing to character assassinate someone, or just try to, I'm afraid that this might happen. I'm going to do this to you, So I was scared of this person. I found out a lot of things later, but I did see them space out a lot and go into like a trance-like state. But then I was told that they had multiple personality disorder after they did a bunch of horrible things to me that I won't get specific about. But this is the first time I'm getting specific about what just freaky, really weird things that happened. And, but just like with the false accusation with Elizabeth Fraser and her parents, they had a lot of evidence. Like, they got piled of evidence. I had piles of evidence. This person started accusing me of this and this and this and this and this, and I have literally on hand at any moment to show, okay, well, they said this, that's not true, here's this evidence. They said this, that's not true, here's this evidence. It was just a pile of ridiculous things, but it made sense when I heard multiple personality disorder, but I didn't know about it. So I was trying to talk to my bishop about it, and this person was very convincing, just like Elizabeth Fraser, right? So trying to understand false accusations being so commonly associated with multiple personality disorder, as I research it, it makes a little more sense, because often they have been abused, something has happened, but they disassociate. It used to be called multiple personality disorder, now it's DID. And so often they have more than one personality, and I did see that in the person, but I didn't know. I thought it was some religious thing. They'd go into a trance and space out, but they literally, it's in the description of the disorder, they go into a trance. But when I told my bishop that, he's like, so you believe in zombies? I'm like, no. Because this person started telling her bishop, and then tell my bishop that I believed in all this. I'm like, if I believed in all this, I would not be publicly denouncing it in 3 videos. This was my 3rd video denouncing this belief system that Chad and Heather Daybell had, that Julie Rowe. I just didn't know as much as I did until this video. And when I found out as much as I had, I was freaked out. And I found out more days after the video. I did more research after I made the video. And it's just like, I'm freaked out. And I was following the spirit. But I knew the paper was coming out. So it was November 12th. Like, I was like, okay, in 2 weeks, our paper's coming out. I thought it was coming out in December, because I was told that. Came out January 3rd. But the guy that was stalking me believed in that stuff. I didn't want him to find me through other people, because I know that they often congregate on LDS Avow, right? And I don't know if they were also obsessed with my photo. I just didn't know. I knew that weeks before this, my website had been shared on LDS Avow. So a lot of things were really scaring me. And I was just like, okay, I need to not be in a situation where this person has any power over me before the paper comes out. But then they just attacked in really horrible ways. But it's just that fear that they, like she explains, you just watch the channel that she talks a lot about how these people are just so afraid of getting excommunicated, because the beliefs are that extreme and that separated from our truth, that if some people have, Chad Daybell was excommunicated, Julie Rowe was excommunicated, but a lot of people believe all the exact things that Chad and Lori believe still. And I found evidence of that, right? It's scary stuff. It's just really weird. But if you scroll down here, it's really, we can get the cursor to show up, but almost to the end of this page. And I didn't read any of this when I first talked about Elizabeth Fraser. But her parents, again, have a pile of evidence, but nobody asked them. Somehow Elizabeth was able to go on within a year. She's got Marie Osmond, Elizabeth Smart, all of them being proud that they met this survivor of human trafficking, which, it's one thing to be abused by man, but human trafficking is horrifying, right? She was so convincing that she had convinced some of the most popular, well-known, like, I believe Marie Osmond's story, I believe Elizabeth Smart, but I don't believe Elizabeth Fraser's, because there is evidence that she publicly was stating, like, for example, just something small, like, she reported assault, but she left out that her mother took her there to report it, but she's claiming her mom's a pimp. And she said that they didn't have a female officer. Well, the parents are like, well, here's the paperwork. A female officer went in and did the exam. The exam was done. But she's spinning the story that they didn't have a female officer, so she didn't want to get examined. Small thing. And just that they had showed evidence of them taking her to a therapist for years. So one of the diagnoses was multiple personality disorder. Potential diagnoses, so I don't know. Bipolar, other mental, disorders common with abuse. So when I saw multiple personality disorder, I'm like, I had already found out that this person that was falsely accusing me of things, someone did experience violence from this person, for one, and they said that they had multiple personality disorder. So it was really scary the more I found out about this other person that was attacking me, like my reputation, and but just scary. But it still scares me, like how many people believe it. Anyone that I've met that's been into this belief system were not mentally okay. Like, I think Heather Daybell sounds very mentally sound, other than being very angry, but like, you understand it, and I can understand her frustration. It would be hard to get over. I don't think she can get over her anger that no one listened to her, and it is awful. So I think she does, in my opinion, from listening to her, I think her anger is like, well, if the bishopric, couldn't they receive revelation that this was a bad guy? Like, why couldn't they see it? And it just destroyed her testimony. And that is really hard. That is a hard one to be like, how can a bishop that can receive revelation not feel it, not have it with them, to know that someone's a bad person about to murder a bunch of people? And she was saying that she didn't think that he should have a calling. I think that's really what it was, that Chad had a calling, and she was like, here are these weird beliefs, that they just defended him. Some people in the bishopric. So it was just really awful and sad. But on the flip, as far as high up as you can go, I take comfort in knowing that, I think it was Elder Ballard, I don't remember which conference it was, but he spoke out against these belief systems, and specifically books about it. I remember it being, so I think someone probably brought up Visions of Glory to me, but I don't remember. It was so long ago. I'm not sure if in 2018, 2019, it was that book, but it was a book about reincarnation. But then I remember that conference, because it was around that time, all these bad things were happening in conference. They were, be careful about extremes with prepping, and these books on near-death experiences, which is what that book was. And Chad Daybell, apparently Julie Rowe had near-death experiences. But in my opinion, making this video my intent was like, this person that believed in all this, I'm like, a bunch of people are going to die. But I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm like, this could be like David Koresh very easily, because they sound like they're creating their own city soon, is what it sounded like from this person. I'm like, well, then you're going to be going up against the government, like the Bundy family. So it just really, I did privately say this to someone, but you just don't know. People say that they don't believe it, but then they do believe. Like, I've had a lot of people lie, gaslight me. It was really scary. And I found a lot of evidence that they lied horribly. So, hard evidence, right? But I had piles of paperwork. This person just kept accusing me of this and this and this and this. And I'm like, I have piles. So who else had piles of evidence is the family, but no one asked the parents, you know? So that's why that just really hit me. And I just was like, oh my gosh. You know, it's not that I don't have compassion for Elizabeth Fraser, but it just, you can't help but feel frustrated with just the mass of people that just believed her, you know, and the fact that she was believable to me. She seemed a little out of it, kind of like, I'll be frank, I think she seemed a little drugged in a few of the videos, just really numb and spaced out. It just, I don't know. So it's I've just been trying to understand and reconcile, okay, false accusations from someone with this, they also have, you know, ongoing gaps in memory about everyday events, personal information, past traumatic events. So while I'm saying this person goes into a trance, and I would see them be really concerned with cleanliness one day and the next day really not, right? And just sometimes catatonic. And I just didn't know what was wrong with them. For all I knew, it could have been a religious thing, but it is very common with DID, and sometimes they're just totally disassociating for a long time. Symptoms, it caused significant distress, which you can understand. And so I think they could convince them of things, thinking something happened that didn't, like with Elizabeth Fraser and this person that accused me of stuff that was not true. I think they also could just be totally manipulative liars too, right? There's still, like, I still believe, because that person's also violent towards a few people, found a lot of evidence of that. So it's been really scary, right? And so that's why I just really don't trust. I don't want anyone trying to like butter me up, or a lot of people have been trying to become my friend, or just really wanting to have long conversations, and I just don't do it anymore. I know I seem mean, and that one guy that was married literally said that, like, I just thought we would talk extensively. I'm like, I don't want to. Right? But there might be a situation where I maybe want to call someone, and then it can have an extent, especially if it's an expert, right? You know, or when I was working with Tag and Amachi, we did Skype and have some long conversations and long emails, and they were sending me a lot of, there was a reason, right? And I'm not creating pen pals. I don't trust people, especially if you're sending me a bunch of links. It's like, I am like, whoa, backing off. No. So that's what it was. But yeah, I have never thought or desired or said that I wanted anyone to die. I've only put it in the context of quoting people that are involved, because they would do these castings that essentially were prayers that people should die because they decided they were dark, according to Melanie Gibb. That's what I did mention Melanie Gibb, but I'm also quoting these girls in Salt Lake City. But I was just saying, for example, I'm overhearing people, like, I just couldn't believe it was so blatant. And it is scary to think how many people are into this, but I do think it's really bad. But to them, I'm really bad. Like, I'm really bad because I don't agree with Michelle Stone to that person. And I'm really bad because I don't believe in tent cities, and this person really does. And I'm really bad because I'm calling out people that do castings and categorize people as black and white, because I think it's dehumanizing. It's similar to Calvinism, where we are not Calvinists as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. We believe in a very merciful God, and that in the afterlife, God is going to bring home as many of his children as he possibly can, and it's dependent on our agency, how we treat people. Like, there could be an atheist that isn't going to hell because they were way nicer than a Mormon down the street. They just, maybe their parents were atheists and they didn't know any differently, right? We don't talk or ever say that people that, don't believe like this are all going to hell. It's not in our vocabulary. But Calvinism, it can be, yeah. And they believe certain people are assigned to just never be saved, or they're just not there's no chance. Like, God has just decided there's no hope for them. Then they can take it to an extreme. Like with any religion, there can be extremes. So there have been extremists that literally were like, like a priest turned to John Taylor and his wife was just like, well, you better keep praying to John Taylor's wife. Well, you better keep praying because, this was God's judgment on you evil people. Like, it was just blatantly telling them that was what God wanted. And he had all these wounds, huge wounds, and her, or maybe it was a surgeon. I don't remember, but there's someone that was religious. But there's a lot of stories where there have been actual preachers that were involved in some of the killings of Mormon pioneers. But that's supposed to be a preacher. That's supposed to be a person of God, but they became murderous because they dehumanized Mormon pioneers because they decided they were dark. They decided they were evil, right? I know I said that on the phone. The people I talked to were like, oh no, she was just denouncing this. And I just got really, because I had, on the 12th, by that point, I had listened about 4 hours of this, and I had called someone. I'd researched that whole week. I'd researched the tent cities. I was like, oh crap, these people are putting their lives at risk, and are they going to go against the government? I'm like, I better show that this is a hoax, which I really believe it is. I don't think, as members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, we do believe we have a prophet that can receive revelation for the whole church, right? But as far as old Joe or any random person in the ward, no one receives revelation for you but you, right? So it's very possible that Richard K. Young maybe was receiving revelation for just himself. So maybe at some date, he needs to be prepared to go live in a tent. I don't know. I mean, people in Maui right now, they might be in a tent, and it happened in some of the other fires in California that they all had to go live in a tent. So you need to know how to survive. Because you don't know when your whole city just might be wiped out by a forest fire or a nuclear bomb or whatever else. But as I mentioned in the video, you're generally always safer in a house. Like if there's a nuclear bomb, you could be on the outskirts. It could be a possibility, according to things said in conference, that you might need to stay in your house, might need a year's supply of food. There might be a point. Because the prophecy is that there'll be no sun. So it could be a natural disaster. It could be something might happen. Is what it sounds like, that it would be dangerous to go outside. But you need to stand in holy places. There's nothing that says go live in a tent city in a prophecy by an apostle or prophet. It's just Richard K. Young and then Julie Rowe and all these other people, and Chad Daybell, who's in jail, and he's, hopefully he gets a lot more consequences than Lori. But yeah, as I state, you can tell I'm very passionately not believing or agreeing with this stuff. But somehow this person with DID convinced my bishop that, oh, no, she doesn't believe in this. And so they just really thought I was gaslit. No, I was crazy. No, I was the one that believed in this stuff. No, I was the one that, And if you watch Into Crime again, it comes from the fear that they're afraid they're going to be excommunicated, so they need to character destroy, assassinate someone else. Yeah. So there's been that. I'm just letting you guys know there's that false accusation, but I have piles of evidence, as did, Elizabeth Fraser's parents. Often when people are severely mentally ill, their story does not stay consistent. It changes. Any truth just gets twisted, and another truth gets completely twisted and twisted and twisted and twisted. But then I was being gaslit. This person was just initially telling me that this person was obsessed with seeing if people were possessed. And then I found hard evidence that they literally were learning castings, how to do castings. Like that is what led into the murders, were all these getting together and doing castings, and then it became not enough to just do these prayers. Like, you're not a judge in Israel. Priesthood holders will cast out evil spirits. Evil spirits are real, but, we are told how to do that. In the Doctrine and Covenants, you just raise your right hand and you say, in the name of Jesus Christ, I command you to depart. And there's power in the name of Jesus Christ. Whereas those people in this other group, this person they lied, but they were involved in it and gaslit and just really, I won't go into all the details of everything that happened, but it was really horrifying, like shaking and crying for months and just really freaked out. But I don't trust people that are into that. And I just, my trust in people is going to take a long time to come back. So guys, don't send me, especially if you're married, don't go into long conversations. But I have DM'd just random people just to be, oh, thank you for this. Thanks for supporting me. I've DM'd with a guy that's a married guy, but it's been appropriate the whole time. And you keep it short. You know, and sometimes, you know, like, oh, okay, well, I just feel like you're almost like a father figure. I'll kind of vent a little bit, you know, and I've been guilty of that. But, like, it's not appropriate to have long, extended conversations, you know, and you learn that in dating. Like, when I was in YSA a long time ago, you know, it was, you know, if you're not interested in a guy, you just kind of keep it short and you don't keep the conversation going. It's not nice if you just say, I don't like you, stop talking to me. Right? So you just sort of don't get too engaged in it. But then it, you know, it hurts people's feelings. And it's hurt my feelings on the flip side, where I was interested in a guy and I was just like, well, can't we at least just be friends even if you're not interested in me? And there was one guy a decade ago that sometimes we were friends, but the other time, like, okay, fine, dude. Like, I get it. You're thinking that I'm interested in you. You're trying to let me know, but I can see you as just a friend. I get that you don't like me, and then we were just friends, and it was okay. But you know, but someone that's married, like, you just don't do that. But it just got weird, and so that person's attacking me. But their feelings were hurt a year ago because they know that they were blocked from commenting. Because they were hurt that I was blowing them off through DMs, and then they were angry, right? So there's a lot more story to that. But this is my truth, and again, know that I have, you know, I could contact Packer and give him make a whole video, but it's not appropriate at this time to do that. I don't want to publicly shame this person. I just want them to get help, just like the other guy that I got a stalking injunction against. Hopefully I don't have to get some more, right? So if I say back off, you back off. You just gotta respect boundaries. And you know, sometimes I ramble. Sometimes I can be annoying and ramble. We can all be annoying, but you gotta take that hint and just go like, okay, you know. So it's a rough world, and it's really sad that it looks like at least a therapist was telling, you know, the family that she likely had multiple personalities, bipolar. Like, she probably had a host of mental illnesses, but like the person that was accusing me, like, they started going, like, literally lying, saying that I had specific mental illnesses to people that no reality, no truth at all, no evidence. I'm like, none of that is true at all. But then it comes to find someone that knew them super well, multiple personality disorder, history of violence. And then if you look at, I found evidence of possibly a very long criminal record. So, yeah. It's been traumatic. It really was traumatizing. And, you know, you might think you're just one guy that's being annoying to me, but when it turns out to be a lot of guys that are just really freaking me out, it's just getting really weird. You know, my patience is gone. That's why. But I knew if the paper coming out, I was in the midst of something very traumatic. So I made the smart choice to take away comments, because that can easily, I was already shaking and crying and traumatic. I don't need more of your negativity, but it's therapeutic for me to talk about these things. But I'm sorry to, you know, the descendants of Joseph Smith or Kim Marshall or anyone else that just feels like I'm attacking them. But I've prayed before I made these videos. It's not personal. But, you know, like in my case, I've invested financially. Sadly, Daniel Larson's invested financially, according to Chris Tarr. But yeah, he says he doesn't think the Larson daguerreotype's Joseph Smith, so that I don't understand where this where Curtis Weber is coming from, saying that he's talked to 3 forensic anthropologists that think that he's likely as a photograph of that is a likely a photograph of Joseph Smith, the lockout image. When there are 2 forensic anthropologists in my paper, 2 experts, I don't know who they are, but I just heard it's publicly on Curtis's page and underneath his first post about his presentation in Mormon book, or not Mormon book reviews, but Mormon History Association. DJ Bodden said that publicly on a public post that 2 experts in England concluded it wasn't a photo of Joseph Smith. So I don't know if they were forensic scientists. I don't know who they are, but that's 4 specialists. DJ Bodden himself, if Chris Starr is an expert, he doesn't think it's a photo of Joseph Smith. That's 6. DJ Bodden is an expert on anatomy because he has to be, because he makes sculptures. 7. You know, it's a lot of well-known experts, artists that don't think the Larson daguerreotype's a photo of Joseph Smith. And it sounds really, really mean, but it's the truth, because people get super emotional. But I have felt strongly and spiritually, because it was the scandal daguerreotype for decades, right? And when I started making videos and spiritually feeling so strongly I needed to make this, and to also sometimes talk about the scandal daguerreotype and the evidence I found that it wasn't, and there was already a lot of evidence out there, but just what I could see with the flat, small chin, right? That's why I posted about the flat, small chin immediately when I looked at Larson daguerreotype. He has a wrong chin, wrong nose, wrong mouth, eyes, no eyebrows, wrong hairline. It's just so many major, major differences. But people are like, oh, well, he fell on his face, so his face totally changed. I'm like, come on, you guys. But the reason it matters, people say it doesn't matter. It matters because people have been praying about it. And that's what the spiritual confirmation to me, that I felt confirmed to me that Joseph doesn't care. I don't think he cares, but he cares that we care. And I think that's where Heavenly Father's at. It's mattered because it's become such a big deal, and people are praying that the truth, DJ Bodden is praying, saying that he prays that the truth comes out. It was the same thing with scandal daguerreotype. It just became, and I get why they were so just jaded and not nice, but I wouldn't say they, because I think it was one person. I think it was always the same person. When I contacted them, but I just felt like, well, God wants the truth to come out. Here's Joseph's photo. So I found it. I just think I was the only one that could see it and look past the stupid hairline. Stupid hairline. If he had puffed up hair, I think people might have just accepted it like that. Right? But that wasn't his signature hairstyle. On all the other artwork, he did not have this bouffant in any of Maudsley's artwork. It was popped up a little bit, but it wasn't bouffant ever. So anyway, now it's turning a much longer video because I'm just talking about everything going on. But I just feel bad. But this gave me some perspective reading about her and understanding this false accusation. But again, I've known someone with psychosis that had a false accusation about certain things. And often there's also psychosis. So I could tell that this person that was accusing me of stuff was having psychosis in the moment, but the bishop couldn't see it. Because they aren't a therapist, right? But then this person was accusing me. I did not know until later that they had gone off and claimed that I was, had all these. No, they weren't crazy. I was, but I just wasn't. I did have really bad anxiety, but they thought I was crazy because I talked about a scientific paper. That just makes you sound like it is crazy, but it happened. And I thought it was going to happen within 2 weeks at this point when I was sort of had a panic attack on the 12th. And yeah, so my life was disrupted. It was just horrible. Again, I have piles of evidence, just like Elizabeth Fraser's family does, because they're like, well, that's not true. That's just minor things, a female cop did check out Elizabeth, and she claims there wasn't one there, and there's paperwork showing that. It just something so small. why that ended up being lied about or forgotten, but they just tend to have really bad confusion, gaps in memory. That would be terrifying. They probably live in constant fear. So they're always scared of what happened in between that time when they were totally out of their body, sort of. That there's no memory of a period of time. So it'd be easy to believe something happened. And who knows if Elizabeth had a personality that decided to do a bunch of things with a bunch of boys. I don't know. But then all of a sudden was in that situation and thought that she didn't consent, but she did. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't know the details, but that's just a theory. Because she claimed it was like a lot of guys in a short period of time. If we go through. But they gave exact names of one abuser. But it was a high number of accusations of her towards specific men in 1 month. So you can just read through this. This is like halfway down. You have to really want to read this, but yeah, you see that it started with the death of someone. And then she just started accusing a lot of people of the R word. And then they went to the police, and then she sent an apology letter so they had evidence of that. So they firmly state that there are records that we can share regarding this frightful season of her life. And so they didn't want to show, but they got redacted versions. So legally they consulted with a lawyer. So that's the hard thing, showing your truth. Sometimes you have to have a lawyer. You have to get legal to share your own freaking truth. But it just, in 1 month, I was trying to remember the exact number of people, but it was a lot. They might state it farther down here. But yeah, the entire family submitted to therapy sessions in order to try to uncover the truth. So the whole family went to therapy. So I won't say any more, but somehow there's a connection. There can be confusion, psychosis, whatever else, false accusations. But then there are real accusations, right? Heather Daybell, what she went through was real and valid, and she felt like she was being gaslit by some of the bishopric and other people. But it's sad, and it's a hard thing to reconcile. I've struggled with it as well. I didn't go through exactly what Heather Daybell did, but it was similar, and I'm sure there are other people that have been verbally, emotionally, or just character assassinated by someone that believed in all this crap just out of defense because they don't want to be found out and they don't want to get excommunicated. That's what it comes down to. Because she calls it out. Her right there. She's talked to enough people. She's like, that's what it is. They're just terrified of being found out and being excommunicated. And have a good day.